I receive complaints about Windows computers being slow all the time. So in this video, I would like to cover some easy ways to help speed up a slow Windows computer. First on the list is to disable unnecessary startup programs. When you first get a Windows computer and whenever you install new programs on a Windows computer, a lot of the times there'll be a lot of programs that try to force themselves to start up in the background whenever you turn on your computer. And these programs can take up resources even though you're not using them, and or even if you don't know what that program is. So to disable unnecessary start programs, you want to press the Windows key on the keyboard or press left click on the start button on the taskbar and type in Task Manager. Now here you want to go to the Startup Apps tab. And a lot of the times the startup apps will be organized by name, but I prefer to go over here to the status column and organize them by status. This will divide them between enabled and disabled programs. As you see, I can already have a whole bunch disabled. Whenever you get a new computer, or if you've never done this before, all of these programs will probably be enabled and they will be taking up computer resources in the background, even though you did not tell your computer to start these programs. So to disable a program, you want to left click on the program and then go up to disable, and then it will move it down to the disabled section. So I'm going to do that again. Microsoft Teams, I don't use that, so I disable it. Now, whenever you disable an app, that doesn't mean that you can't ever use the app. If you use, let's say, if you use Microsoft Teams, then all you have to do is click on Microsoft Teams when you want to use it, and then Microsoft Teams will start up as normal. So most items you don't have to really worry about. Some things that you may want to keep, if you're unsure if it's like system related, you may give it a Google search or check below. I'll have a link to a list of common things that I disable. But two things that I'm not disabling on this computer is the RTK, which is audio program, and then Surface DTK, which is a program specific to my laptop. Another thing that you may not want to disable is if you have any clouds. I don't use OneDrive, but if you use OneDrive Cloud or any other cloud service similar to that, then you may want to make sure that is enabled, because then whenever you boot up your computer, the cloud services will automatically start syncing with the cloud. And so it's best if you keep whatever cloud service you're using active. Now, while we're in Task Manager, I want to talk about your hard drive. If you go to Performance and then look at Disk 0, if you see HDD here, that means you have an old hard drive type, and that's going to slow your computer down a lot. It's going to cause a lot of issues. If you are not tech savvy and you know someone who is, you may see if they are able to help you upgrade the HDD to an SSD. SSDs are newer and faster, and sometimes you may see NVMe here. You may see SSD and NVMe at the same time. You may see one or the other. It just depends on the system. Another thing is if you have a desktop and you do not have a GPU, you may want to think about adding a GPU. I won't go into much detail on the hardware side of this. I just want to make sure that you're aware of some of the common hardware upgrades that you can do to your computer to help make it faster. So next on the list, I want to talk about restarting and powering off your computer. A lot of programs will stay running in the background, and so if you restart your computer or power it off regularly, then these background services will, whenever you boot your computer back up, those background services won't be running anymore, and that can help save on some resources. And also, sometimes Windows needs an update, and that update requires a system reboot, and so that can help keep your system up to date. Another common thing that I disable to help with my computer speed is I disable visual effects. Windows likes to add these visual effects to your computer so to make it look a little fancier, but I don't think most people even know that these effects are even in place. So to turn off visual effects, you want to click on the start button on the taskbar and type in visual, and then click on visual effects. And then here you'll see transparency effect and animation effect. You want to make sure that both of these are turned off. So as you can see with transparency effect, it kind of made it to where my Windows background bleeds through my window that I have up. And if I turn it off, it becomes solid. I actually prefer the solid look more than the transparency look anyways. And then animation effects, I'll be honest, I don't remember what that does, but just go ahead and turn that off if you want to help save on some of your computer resources. Next, we're going to talk about widgets. Windows likes to have widgets running in the background, and I'll just turn that on real quick so I can show you. So to turn off widgets, you want to right click on the taskbar anywhere that is blank, and then click on taskbar settings. And then go to widgets. I'm going to turn it on real quick so you can see. So you can see, as you can see, it kind of puts this little window down at the bottom, and it changes between local temperature, stock market, sports, stuff like that. And if you hover over it, this window comes up, and I don't need that in my life, so I disable that. And while I'm also here, I also disable the task view. I'll show you that real quick. It's just this little button. I just disable it to help make my taskbar look cleaner. And then this search is on Windows by default, and I just like to try to get rid of a lot of the clutter, so I'm going to hide the search as well. Now next is to make sure that your hard drive is not full. I see this pretty often where the hard drive is full, and because of that, it's slowing the computer down a lot. So to check your hard drive space, you'll want to open up folders. So it should be a icon, the File Explorer icon should be on your taskbar. If it's not, you can go to the Start button and just type in File, and then File Explorer should come up. Then what you want to do is look for this PC, and there'll be a little arrow. You could toggle the drop down under this PC, and then go to Local Disk C, right click on that, and go to Properties. And then here you'll see capacity 237 gigs. That's my total hard drive size. Free space is 131 gigs, and use space is 105. Now I'm not going to go into a whole lot of detail about how to clear up space. I will cover that in another video, especially if you want to move things onto a cloud. I will cover how to do that in another video. The biggest thing that I will say is if you are at 100%, the easiest and quickest way to free up space is to find a video in your File Explorer that you do not need anymore, and either move it to a cloud, a local shared drive, an external hard drive, or simply delete it if you don't need it anymore. And that's the quickest way, because like videos usually take up a whole lot of space. So next we're going to talk about uninstalling unnecessary programs. Windows likes to come with a lot of bloatware pre-installed, and so we're going to try to clear out some of this bloatware. So press the Windows key on the keyboard or click on the Start button on the taskbar and type in uninstall. And you should see add or remove programs. Click on that. Now you do want to be careful because there are some programs in here that you will want to keep. An example of that would be Epson. Anything that says Epson. I have an Epson printer, so if I delete these, my printer or my computer won't be able to communicate with my printer. Another thing that you for sure want to keep is, let's see here. The Microsoft Update Health Tools, I'm not entirely sure what that is, but might as well just keep that. I'd have to do a quick Google search. Anything that's like Microsoft, you may want to think twice about deleting it, unless it's like Microsoft Office and you don't use Office. Like I use Libre, LibreOffice, and so then I can uninstall the Microsoft Office. That'd be fine for me. A lot of these, any of these Microsoft Visual C++ you want to keep, and there's a lot of them, so you want to keep all of them. NVIDIA graphics driver. So my laptop has a NVIDIA graphics card, and I want to keep this. If I delete it, then my laptop will have issues with my graphics card. There, you could also see one that says AMD. That's Alpha Mike Delta, and that is they also have graphics cards. And so if you see anything NVIDIA or AMD, you want to keep those. And let's see here. This Surface is specific to my laptop. I have a Microsoft Surface Book, so I want to keep that. Keep the terminal. Update for Windows 10. I have Windows 11, but I'm going to go ahead and keep this anyways, just because this is I'd rather not delete it and then have issues. So just to be on the safe side, I would delete that. I mean, I would keep that. And then this Microsoft language, I think that's just for determining the language that you're typing in. I would just keep it because it's from the Microsoft, and I just would rather keep that just for in case it has other functions that I'm not aware of. These Xbox stuff you could delete. The Windows PC health check, you could probably keep that. Windows clock, you probably want to keep. Weather, you could delete that. Team viewer, I would keep, especially if you're not very tech savvy and you have a tech savvy friend or family member that could log into your computer. So team viewer is good for if you're needing help on your computer. And I have a video on that. I will put a link to that down in the description below. Any of the games you could uninstall. So the Solitaire you could uninstall. Snipping tool I would keep because you can make take pictures of your computer screen digitally, and so that's really nice if you're trying to get help from a tech person. Skype you can uninstall. Samsung USB driver I would keep. Samsung Dex I would keep. So that's just to kind of give you an idea of, People's, if you don't use that, you can uninstall that. Outlook, if you don't use that, you can uninstall it. OpenOffice is Microsoft Office suite like alternative. And if you have any cloud programs, so I actually use Nextcloud, but if you use whatever your cloud is, you want to be sure that you do not uninstall it, because then it won't back up your system. So I will have a link below to a list of apps that I commonly uninstall whenever I uninstall programs on somebody's computer. If that item is not on the list, then I will just add it over. So over time, though, it'll be a bigger list. So next, I want to talk about running a malware and virus scan. Sometimes you can get a virus, especially if you go to crazy websites, and if you get like a lot of spam and you don't realize that it's spam, and sometimes the spam can lead you to a suspicious website or to accidentally download a program on your computer. Those are common ways that people get viruses on their computer. So to check for a virus, you want to press the Windows key on the keyboard or click on the start button on the taskbar and type in virus. And then you'll see virus and threat protection. And then here you could do a quick scan, but if you haven't done a scan in a long time, it's best to go to scan options and then go to full scan, and then just click scan now, and it should quarantine any viruses that it finds. So next, I want to talk about your web browser. If you're using Edge, which I have down here, if you're using Google Chrome, or if you're using Opera, I would say that those are three big web browsers that I would avoid and try to uninstall or disable on your computer, because these three are either really slow, they're spyware, or they're both slow and they're spyware. So I prefer Firefox, but I don't recommend Firefox for most people because they have been doing a lot of weird changes lately, and they're not as privacy friendly as they used to be, which is a shame because I have used Firefox for a really long time now, and I love Firefox. So if you use Firefox, you'll probably want to go through the settings and the about configs, which is like the advanced settings. I'll have a video down below on how to an easy way to make Firefox more privacy friendly. But for people who are not very tech savvy, the best web browsers that I would recommend is Brave or DuckDuckGo, because these are both going to be pretty fast and they're privacy friendly. So if I was to say work on my grandma's laptop, at this time, these are the two web browsers that I would recommend. Now, it is possible that over time they kind of follow in Firefox's footsteps and do weird things like Firefox started. I think they're accepting money from Google, so that to make it to where when you download Firefox, Google is the default search engine and stuff like that. So yeah, if you're not very tech savvy, just stick with Brave or DuckDuckGo. So another thing to note is if you have a bunch of web browsers open. So let's say you have like a whole bunch of websites. Each of these tabs is a different website, right? Well, each of these tabs are going to continuously take up computer resources in the background. So if you're not using a tab, what I would do is let's say I am on Reddit, right? And I'm not currently reading this tab. So what I would do is go over to this little star and you can bookmark it, or you can highlight the URL, click and drag, and then you could drag it down to your bookmark bar. And then that way you can close out the tab. And then if you need to go to that place again, you could just click on it. This would be handy. Like you could make a tab. So to make a new folder, you go to right click on it and then add folder. And let's say you have like a bunch of banks that you go to, you could just type in bank. And then whenever you have a bank URL, you could just click and drag it in there. And then that way whenever you're not at that bank, you can close out that tab. And then you can easily open up that bank whenever you need to. So if this bookmark bar isn't here, you can just right click on an empty space on your toolbar and then go to bookmarks toolbar and then just make sure it's on always show. They do have extensions that will put your tabs to sleep if you don't use them after a certain amount of time. I just prefer the bookmark version, so that's the only thing I'm going to show for this. Now we could do so you want to make sure all your tabs are closed that you're not using, and then to like add on to that, if there's any programs that you're not using, like let's say I'm not using Firefox, then you can just X out of Firefox, and that will help save some computer resources. So anything that you're not using, you want to exit out. That way, the one program that you are using, that one program will have more resources to work with. And then they have this little system tray on the bottom right, and they like to be sneaky. So you have this little arrow that says show hidden icons. If you click on that, as you can see, I have Microsoft 365 Copilot and I have Microsoft Teams. I don't use either of those, so I'm just going to quit both of them. And that will help free up some space in the background. So the next thing I want to talk about is adjusting your power settings. I don't remember if this works on desktop. It may or may not. I don't remember. But if you're on a laptop, you can right click on the battery and then click on power and sleep settings. Or you can click on the start button and type in power. And then you should see power action settings. Click on that. Both ways will take you to the same place. Go down to energy saver and make sure that the always use energy saver is off. This will help make it to where your computer uses a little bit more power. And then go up to power options. And I think by default it's on recommended. Make sure it's on best. Depending on the version of Windows that you're on, if you're on an older version, it'll use different verbiage. Just use whatever seems like it's going to use the most power for your situation. So if it's like if your options are like power saving mode and like high power usage mode, then just go with the equivalent to high power usage mode. Next, I want to talk about making sure that you have the latest Windows updates. This is because you want the latest security, performance, and hardware patches installed on your computer to help it help keep it running more efficiently. So to check that, you press the Windows key on the keyboard and type in update. And you should see check for updates. Then where it says retry all for me, it may say run updates for you. The reason why it says retry all for me is I have this weird install error for Canon printer update that I'm not worried about because I don't use Canon printers, so I'm just not worried about it. Now, while we're here, you may want to make sure that you enable the get the latest updates as soon as they're available. This will make it to where a lot of your updates will be automatic. Whenever you do run a update for Windows, you do want to save any documents that you're working on, because oftentimes Windows will want you to reboot the computer in order to continue some of the updates. So you want to make sure everything that can be saved is saved whenever you do an update. That way, if it wants to do a reboot, you won't lose any of your unsaved data. And then there's an advanced options section. I'm not going to go into much detail on this, but if you want to go into more detail or go into a deep dive on more Windows updates options, then that's where you would go for that. So next I want to talk about disk cleanup. If you have an HDD, this is more beneficial for you. So what disk cleanup does is it clears cache off of your computer, and it can help speed up your computer a little bit. So to start disk cleanup, press the Windows key on the keyboard or click on the start button and type in disk cleanup. And then click on cleanup system files. And then you can go through and check everything. If you store or if you keep your login information on your web browsers, you may want to uncheck this. I don't keep any stored information on my web browsers except for bookmarks, and this doesn't delete bookmarks, so you should be good to delete the temporary internet files. I think that it will clear your search history and stuff like that. And a good place to like free up space for your hard drive is to delete the whatever's in your recycling bin. This is I've only seen one person do this, but if you're that one person that keeps files in your recycling bin, you may want to move those files out that you want to keep, so that way it'll make it easier for you to delete files that you do not need anymore. Then once you decide once you decide have everything selected that you want to delete, then just click OK. I'm not going to do it because it'll take a minute to run through everything, but that's how you would do a disk cleanup. Next, I want to talk about your network. So if you have a desktop, I always recommend to, if you're able to, hook up anything via Ethernet, which is the Cat5 cable that you connect, that you use the Cat5 or Ethernet connection as opposed to Wi-Fi, because the Ethernet will provide a more stable link, and also it will allow you to transfer more data faster. That for Wi-Fi is good for like mobile phones, tablets, and depending on your laptop and where you use your laptop, then it can be helpful for that. But if you have a desk setup, I recommend just running a Cat5 cable from your router to your desktop computer. And I actually have like a bunch of laptops that I use in my little office, and if they have an Ethernet port, I use the Ethernet port. And if they don't have an Ethernet port, then it's kind of hit or miss for me. But if it has an Ethernet port, I'm using that instead of Wi-Fi. Now, if you have to use Wi-Fi, you'll want to make sure that your device is as close to your router as possible. You can look down at the bottom right. I'm using Wi-Fi, and I have a strong signal. So if I am missing a bar, every bar that I'm missing on my signal is going to add to how slow my internet is. Or if I have like any local network like shared drives or clouds, then if I have a low signal, that's going to slow down my connection to anything on my network. I will cover Ethernet in more in another guide. I will also talk about mesh networks, which you could benefit from a mesh network and stuff like that. And I'll have a link down below for those who are interested in that. So I hope that this video was helpful for you. I hope that it helped you speed up your computer so that way you can use it. If you found it helpful, please like, share, and subscribe. And I am starting a tech store that I'm trying to make it to where it's easy for non-techie people to find the tech that they need. And so I will have a link to that down below as well. And as always, have a good one.